Good day, everyone. Many people would probably say that disability is a weakness. Disability is often seen as a weakness or illness, but disability should not be defined in that way. However, in my point of view, disability will become a weakness if the disabled person are not given the equal rights. However, disabled person must be treated equally, hence inclusion in the society. In this video, we are going to discuss the RA 7277 or the Magna Carta for Disabled Person. What are the rights of the disabled person? What are the penalties if you discriminate them? All of those questions will be answered in this lesson. The RA 7277, also known as the Magna Carta for Disabled Person, it is an act providing for the rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance of the disabled persons and their integration into the mainstream of society and for other purposes. According to Section 2 of this RA, disabled persons are part of the Philippine society. Thus, the state shall give full support to the improvement of the total well-being of disabled persons and their integration into the mainstream of society. It shall develop their skills and potentials to enable them to compete favorably for available opportunities. But who are involved in this act? According to the Section 3, the coverage, this act shall cover the disabled persons and other agencies like the departments, offices, and agencies of the national government or the non-government organizations in order for this or for the objectives of this act to be attained. Who are the disabled persons? Section 4 defines the disabled persons. So disabled persons are those suffering from restriction or different abilities as a result of mental or physical or even sensory impairment. So what are those major kinds of disability according to Section 4? The mental, the physical, or sensory impairment. Now let's discuss the rights and privileges of the disabled person. It is found in the Title 2, the rights and privileges of the disabled person, and Chapter 1 is all about employment. Section 5 is about the equal opportunity for employment. No disabled person shall be denied access to opportunities for suitable employment. So the main idea of this Section 5, the disabled person shall get or acquire the same privileges as the able-bodied persons. They will get the same compensation, privileges, benefits, fringe benefits, incentives, or allowances. Section 6, Sheltered Employment. If suitable employment for disabled person cannot be found through open employment as provided in the immediately preceding section, the state shall endeavor to provide it by means of sheltered employment. In the placement of the disabled person in sheltered employment, it shall accord due to the regard to or due regard to the individual qualities, vocational goals, and inclination to ensure a good working atmosphere and proficient or efficient production. According to Armstrong 2011, sheltered employment is a setting in which people with disabilities receive services and training to develop work-related skills and behaviors. So sheltered employment is a place for disabled person where they can develop their skills, they can receive services in order also to develop their related skills and behaviors. Next is the section 7, apprenticeship. This section tells us that the disabled person are allowed to be apprenticed or learner in order for them to develop their skills in the workplace. So apprenticeship is a kind of a training for them to or for the new generation of workers. Or apprenticeship in disabled person, they are learners who want to be trained in order for them to develop their work related skills. Next is incentives for employers. So in this section, the employers receive incentives to encourage the active participation of the private sector in the promoting of welfare of the disabled person and to ensure gainful employment for qualified disabled persons. Next, Section 9, vocational rehabilitation. So vocational rehabilitation helps people with um, physical impairment, sensory impairment, and mental impairment and learning disabilities to find and keep jobs. So VR, or the vocational rehabilitation, helps you as a disabled person job identify job goals based on their interests and skills and explore college and vocational training. So it's all about job placement assistance, college or vocational trainings that will help the physical disabled person, not just the physical disabled person, but also the people with sensory and mental impairment to develop their skills or to keep their jobs and to improve their interest. Next is Section 10, Vocational Guidance Counseling. So the Department of Social and Welfare and Development shall implement measures providing and evaluating vocational guidance and counseling to enable disabled person to secure, retain, and advance in employment. And lastly, Section 11 is the implementing rules and regulations that Department of Labor and Employment, the DSWD, together with the National Council for the Welfare of the Disabled Person, or the NCWDP, shall promulgate the rules and regulations to implement the provisions under the Chapter 1. It's all about the employment. Next, Chapter 2, it's all about education. So Section 12, access to quality education. So the disabled person are allowed to be enrolled or to have an access to quality education. It shall be unlawful, according to Section 12, it shall be unlawful for any learning institution to deny a disabled person admission to any course it offers by reason of handicap or disability. So, disability is not a hindrance for them to acquire access to quality education. So, it shall be unlawful for the learning institution if they deny disabled person because of their disability. So, the main idea of the Section 12 is quality education for disabled person. Next is Section 13, Assistance to Disabled Person. The state shall provide financial assistance to economically marginalized but deserving disabled students pursuing post-secondary or tertiary education. That's according to Section 13. They will uh, acquire assistance, or the disabled person are eligible to have assistance in a form of scholarship grants, student loan programs, subsidies, and other incentives to qualify disabled students in both public and private schools. Section 14, Special Education. The state shall establish, maintain, and support complete and an adequate integrated system of special education for the visually impaired, hearing impaired, mentally retarded persons, and other types of exceptional children in all regions in this country. So the government or the national government shall allocate funds necessary for the effective implementation of the special education program nationwide. That's why there are special education for disabled persons in other schools in order to cater the disabled person and other exceptional children. Next is Section 15, Vocational or Technical and Other Training Programs. The main idea for this Section 15 is that the state shall provide disabled person with training in civics, vocational efficiency, sports and physical fitness, and other skills. Next is the Section 16, the non-formal education. The state shall develop non-formal education programs intended for the total human development of the disabled person. So what are the examples of the non-formal education? So these are community-based education programs, online courses, fitness programs, and other things that cater the disabled person. Next is the Section 17, the state and universities and colleges. The main job or the main duty of the state universities and colleges The state university and state college in each region of province shall be responsible for the development of materials that are needed by the disabled person. They are also the ones that develop training materials for vocational rehabilitation and special education instruction, and are also responsible for the research on special problems. And they are also responsible for the inclusion of SPED, or the special education for disabled person, as the curriculum. The national government shall provide these states, universities, colleges with necessary special facilities for visually impaired, hearing impaired, speech impaired, and orthopedically impaired students. It shall likewise allocate the necessary funds in the the support of this section. Next, chapter 3. It's all about the health of the deep PWDs, or the persons with disability. According to section 18, there is a national health program for them. So there are national health programs that are offered by the Department of Health, like immunization, but there are also health programs only for the or health services only for the disabled person. So according to section 19, there is also a rehabilitation centers. So the Department of Health shall establish medical rehabilitation centers in government provincial hospitals, and shall include an annual appropriation of the necessary funds. And the main reason for these rehabilitation centers is in order for the disabled person, especially the economically marginalized person or disabled person, to avail of free rehabilitation services, health services in the government hospitals. Next, what are the health services that disabled persons could acquire? According to Section 20, health services, the state shall protect and promote the right of health disabled person, and shall adopt and integrate and comprehensive approach to their health development. So what are those uh, health services? So a prevention of disability through immunization, nutrition, environmental protection, and preservation.